Hello, everybody, and thank you for joining me today. It's Allan Laboucan with the Rocks and Stocks News Show. Got another of my sector reports to do today. What I wanted to talk about today is that this time of the year is when from here until into March, there's a series of investor conferences that a lot of the mining companies and juniors attend, and they tend to put out a lot of news. And that's a big thing for me at Rocks and Stocks News, because we, on a daily basis, are reviewing all the news releases of the junior space and trying to filter out the quality over the wheat from the chaff, if you will. I look at that with a filter of having been in the mining exploration business since 1993, had some great mentors in geology, geophysics, geochemistry. And so I work as a somewhat of a filter for my audience, and then I try to find the best stories out there for to have interviews with the management when they make important news, as well as my sector reports. So it's the shows that are coming up. One is started right now, which is the AMEBC. That's the Association of Mining Exploration in British Columbia. That brings a lot of investors to Vancouver. On the back of that is the Metals Investors Forum. And on the back of that is also the Vancouver Resource Investment Conference. And then in early March is the Prospectors and Developers Conference in Toronto. So this next 6 to 8 weeks is a period when a lot of news comes out. And so making that a priority for me on a daily basis. This is a busy time of the year. And so I'm always out there looking for good news, and this is a good time of the year to be following that. I'm also, I also watch the January effect very closely. And the reason for that is when big institutions sort of at the end of one year and the start of another, they tend to look at things from an annual perspective. And oftentimes they'll position themselves in January out of assets that they think they're bearish on, are going to have bearish years, and they get into those that they think are going to have bullish years. And so far, we're seeing a pretty interesting development taking place with the US dollar going through a death cross in January, and the price of gold going through a golden cross in January. And it doesn't surprise me, but the trajectory of both moves. So you look at the trajectory of I watch the 50-day and the 200-day moving averages, and the trajectory of the 50-day moving average going up through the 200-day moving average is extremely bullish. It's not one of these kind of trends where, it's fairly shallow. It's very steep. And the opposite is happening with the price of the US dollar. It's the slope that it's going through the 200-day moving average is very bearish. So what this tells me is that the January effect is saying that gold is going to have a very good year and the US dollar is going to have a very bad year. And we're seeing similar things in the price of silver and copper and other metals that tend to move contrary to what's happening with the US dollar. Now, trends are one thing, but you got to have the fundamentals backing them up. On the fundamentals of the US dollar's weakness, you've got the housing market falling off a cliff. And that shouldn't be a surprise to the Federal Reserve economists, but it seems to be, in that if you have 14 years after the 2008 economic crisis, and you spend the next 14 years at near zero interest rates, you've got almost a full generation of a housing market that was built on near zero interest rates. And then you ratchet them up rapidly, and that's going to break things. It's breaking the housing market. and the inverted yield curves are suggesting that it's breaking the overall economy as well. I think, and now you've also added into that the equation that the politicians, in their infinite lack of wisdom, are fighting over the debt ceiling, which is kind of laughable because it doesn't really matter if you're on the left or the right. Politicians like to spend money without constraints, and that's what they do, and that's what they will continue to do, and they will raise the debt limit, but in the meantime, they'll try to break things too, and keep on, the country will keep on going through a tremendous amount of debt, and I don't think it's very long before they start having to lower interest rates and go into their next quantitative easing. So the fundamentals of what's making the US dollar weak are very powerful arguments that we're going to see the US dollar under pressure in 2023. On the other side, when you're priced in the US dollar, and that's the price that most people who watch the price of commodities pay attention to, well, it's no wonder that we're seeing gold and silver and copper and other commodities doing very well. And the fundamentals are very strong for those as well. You look at the supply and demand equation. There's plenty of demand coming in from all over the world. And even the central bankers are starting to buy a lot of gold. And they're trying to, hedge their own positions and have some protection against weak currencies. On the supply side, there's been decades of underinvestment in exploration to find the new projects to develop and turn into mines. And at the same time, a lot of mines are being mined out or being high graded, and that's been going on for a long period of time. And even though they're high grading the mines, the head grades of mines are in steep decline and have been for a number of years. And there's just not enough in the pipeline to replace what the miners are taking out of the ground every year. And that's consistent almost across every metal. It doesn't matter whether you're looking at gold, silver, copper, zinc, other commodities that are needed, lithium. They just are not getting enough of it to meet the demand. So I think we've got a technical indicators that are pointing towards things being up, and also the fundamentals of supply and demand going in that direction as well. On the gold price, what I predict is going to happen in 2023, now that I've seen how the January effect is playing out, is I think that you're going, let me bring up a chart here, and this will help me show it a little bit better. Let's go over here. All right, so here's the gold price. And actually, I'm going to go back to the US dollar for a second before I do this. Now, what you can see in the US dollar here is it had a golden cross back in the summertime of 2021. And then it spent almost, well over a year with the 50-day moving average staying way above the 200-day moving average. And both the 200-day moving average and the 50-day moving average were moving up in a bullish direction. Okay, so as you can see, these kind of trends, they tend to last for some time. So what I'm predicting will happen is we've just gone through the bullish cross. The 200-day is about to start moving up. The 50-day is on a trajectory to stay well above the 200-day. And I think that's the trend for 2023, which will take the price of gold much higher. And gold has a way of being a leader in the metals space. When people are optimistic about the price of gold, they are often optimistic about the price of all the metals. And the real big movers are the metals stocks, because they're coming from a really depressed price. throughout most of 2022, I had talked a lot about the similarities I was seeing in the valuations of gold stocks, whether they were the biggest all the way down to the smallest juniors, were at record low valuations, and how it was reminding me of the year 2000, and that was the precursor to the 2011 or 2001 to around 2012 bull market in the price of gold and other metals. And so I was seeing a similar setup for the gold stocks in 2022 that reminded me of what I saw in the year 2000. And then in later part of the year, when it became apparent that the Federal Reserve was starting to get towards the end of their rate hikes, we started to see the shift. We saw the shift in the US dollar getting under pressure, and gold and silver and other commodities getting in upwards pressure. So that's the backdrop. Those are the big market movers. I'm very confident that we're going to see an excellent year for the price of gold that takes it well into the 2000s. I think we'll see 2,500 on the price of gold this year. And the big trend for it will be a year where it goes up and up and up, with the 50-day moving average staying above the 200-day moving average, and both the 200-day and the 50-day moving in a very bullish pattern. Okay, so now I wanted to talk about at the end of every year, I go through my year in review, and I talked about a lot of companies in my year in review, and I want to kind of go circle back now that it's we're a few weeks into the new year, and I can get a pretty good sense for the price of gold based on the January effect and the change in the trend that started in November and has gone through a golden cross, very bullish. I might as well, silver is another one that I try to follow a bunch of silver companies or companies that have exposure to silver. And as often happens, silver follows a similar path as the price of gold. It broke out in early November, just like gold, busted through the 50-day and the 200-day, had a golden cross before the price of gold did, which tends to happen. The US or the silver price tends to outperform on the way down and on the way up, and it went through its golden cross before. As of today, it's trading right at its 50-day moving average, but it does look like the 200-day moving average is about to turn up as well. Copper, I follow copper because it's kind of the sentiment driver for the base metals. And here again, recently went through a 50-day or through the golden cross. It also started trending up. You see the pattern here. Gold started moving in early November, silver, copper, they all started going, and they're going in a contrary direction to the US dollar. Okay, so I break it down. I follow a lot of companies in Nevada, and my favorite camp inside Nevada is the Eureka mining camp. And what's really got my attention in the Eureka mining camp was led by a company called I-80 Gold in 2022. I-80 Gold made a very high-grade discovery called the Ruby Deeps discovery to the west of the old Archimedes pit. It was big, thick intersections of high grade for an underground bulk mining scenario. And then they also expanded that by higher up in the system. They found what's called the 426 zone. And then that 426 zone is right beside the bottom of the Archimedes pit. And so this gives them easy access to the 426 zone. A lot more of that than they had anticipated is oxide, so they can make a lot of money mining that oxide material, and that will lead them down to the Ruby Deeps. So that in itself is a world-class project for a gold asset. But then they started drilling to the south of that Archimedes pit and found this phenomenal CRD system. And here's where they announced a spectacular hit on the CRD. It had, like a traditional CRD, it had your zinc, lead, and silver, but then it also had an overprint of bonanza grade gold. Now, these two things come in at different times in the past, but what they have in common is there's a network of faulting, and these deep cracks in the earth are what allows those fluids to make their way up. And in this case, you had a CRD come through and also a high-grade gold system. And that really sent the stock blasting off, and it got helped by the price of gold. Right now, it's trading at the 50-day moving average, but look at this trajectory that it went through the Golden Cross. Now the 200-day moving average is trending up. The 50-day moving average is on a very bullish trajectory, and they have pending news coming out at any time from their CRD discovery. So I'm very optimistic about what's going to happen when they have some more news out. Okay, and so another company that's the one that's right beside them is a company called Paycore. And Paycore was just in the news a couple of days ago because they announced that they have arranged a $16 million bought deal financing with no warrant. Usually these days, the companies doing financings have to attach a warrant. In this case, they were able to do it without a warrant. In fact, it started out at an $8 million bought deal, and they doubled that the next day to 16 million, and it has an over allotment for the brokers, so they could be raising more than that. But what's quite nice about it is they were able to do it at a price where they only have to put out about 10 million shares, and that will give them $16 million. Okay, so why are these financiers so excited about why would they give them that kind of money is the natural question. And the reason is that they have a CRD right beside I-80 Gold, about 2,000 meters apart from their various drill hole setups. And excuse me, they found the same kind of a system. They've found a CRD with your high grade zinc, lead, and silver, and an overprint of very high grade to bonanza grades of gold. So I gave the metals bearing fluids are looking for a path of least resistance. That's these cracks in the earth or faults that open the rock up and allow those fluids to make their way up towards the surface. And you have two events. One is the CRD coming in. The second is the gold system coming in, but they're following the same path of least resistance, the same cracks in the earth. And you can see that the network of faults goes from I-80 Gold all the way through Paycore. And it's in the same kind of rock packages, the same kind of structural story. So same network of structures, same packages of rocks go through both of these projects. And so it's no wonder that they're getting the same kind of a system or the same kind of deposits. Now, what makes these two CRDs so exciting is if you look at the metal value in the rock, it's off the charts. You're looking at anywhere on these two projects from about $1,000 a ton worth of metals all the way over $5,000 a ton. This is some very rich rock at both the I-80 and Paycore's ground. And that's why I-80 has done so well, and actually Paycore has done so well, and why they were able to raise a $16 million bought deal financing without a warrant. So this is going to generate a lot of news for Paycore. I think both companies are going to see a lot of news in the next little while. So then you go to the, both of those companies are sponsors of my shows. So I do a lot of interviews with them, and I cover them regularly in my sector reports, and you can find those on my YouTube channel at Rocks and Stocks News and on my Substack at rocksandstocks.substack.com. So then right beside Paycore is another sponsor of my shows, which is Golden Lake Exploration. In fact, I'm also a advisor to the company. I give them some advice on strategic planning, digital marketing, corporate development kind of stuff. And what excites me and why I threw my hat in the ring to become an advisor to Golden Lake is that they also have a CRD with high grades of zinc, lead, and silver, and an overprint of high grade gold. So again, this now you're looking at about 2,000 or 6,000 meters between I-80 Gold CRD down to Golden Lake CRD. But it's in the same network of of structures. It's in the same packages of rock, and they're finding the same kind of stuff at Golden Lake as what Paycore and I-80 have found. Now, they also had added Don Hoy to their VP exploration, and I recently did an interview with Don. And he's come together with a game plan to further the exploration of their known CRD with the overprint of high grade gold. But then just a couple of days ago, they had some news out that there was past sampling done that they did the assays on, and it looks like there's multiple targets on the property for CRDs with high grades of zinc, lead, and silver, as well as an overprint of high grade gold. So this is a special corridor that I think is emerging into one of the most important regions inside of Nevada. And if you look at the rock value of metals in the rock, in situ rock values, it's off the charts, this network of CRDs. And so I'm very bullish on those, that group of companies. But then to their immediate south of Timberline, south of Golden Lake is Timberline. And Timberline has a resource of gold on their property that they're expanding. And they've been the underperformer in this group, but I think that that's going to change. They have a big resource that's getting bigger. But what really excites me the most about that target is as they're stepping out to the west of the resource, to the east of the resource, all of the mineralization and all the structures are pointing towards the east. And not very far from where they've drilled, there's a big geophysical anomaly. Everything is pointing towards that geophysical, the mineralization, the rock packages, and the structures are all pointing towards that geophysical anomaly as being the source of where the gold came from in the resource. So I'm very excited to see them get over to that. In addition, they have on their property is a bunch of historical workings that you can actually see from Google Earth of CRD mining on their property. So they're in the same camp as what i-80 Gold is finding, Paycor is finding, Golden Lake's finding, and I think that Timberline will find important CRDs as well. Plus, they've got this resource and a big geophysical anomaly right beside it. I think that they're very oversold here, and they are a sponsor of my website as well, and I've done interviews with them. Okay, so before I leave Nevada, I wanted to talk about Walker River Resources. Walker River Resources is another sponsor of my website. That's really got a power chart. As you can see, it broke out in December. It's now trading well above its 50-day moving average and 200-day. The trajectory of the 50-day moving average was very powerful as it went through the Golden Cross. It's now trading well above the 200-day moving average and the 50-day moving average. And what's got the optimism going is that they drilled 2 targets on their property. One was the Pikes Peak target, which they think is a porphyry target. And these porphyries are the heat engines that bring the metals-bearing fluids up towards the surface. And then they find their way along the faults, and they think that that could be the source of where all the gold that they found at the nearby Lapon Mountain has come from. The primary target on the project is the Lapon Mountain. At Lapon Mountain, you go about 600 meters from side to side, and about 800 meters from top to bottom. And they've got widespread high-grade gold mineralization in that area. In addition to that, they've got a network of faults, so the cracks in the earth that allow those fluids to come up. And then they have a big alteration package. So when the metals-bearing fluids interact with the country rock, the chemicals alter that rock. So you're seeing a widespread area of high-grade gold mineralization, a network of faulting, these cracks in the earth that allow the fluids to come up, and a big alteration package. Everything is pointing towards that being one big, powerful gold mineralizing system. And I think that's what they have on their hands. The exciting drilling that they recently did was at the top of the mountain is what they call their hotspot zone. And they were able to get above the hotspot zone and drill a series of vertical holes into that hotspot zone. And I'm very optimistic that they're going to have good news out from that hotspot at the top of Lapon Mountain. And those results are pending as well. So stay tuned. I think they could come out with news at any time. Another sponsor of my show in Nevada is BlackRock Silver. BlackRock Silver has a resource on their Tonopah project in Nevada, and they have just writing a couple quick notes to myself here. They have announced the resource already. It's a substantial resource of very high-grade silver. In fact, it's comparable to Silvercrest's maiden resource on their Las Chispas mine. So after Las Chispas maiden resource, they continued to expand that resource. They focused in on the high grade, and they did all the engineering and the economics. And now, as of early November, it turned into a full commercial production. And it's a cash cow of a mine. Just making cash hand over fist. They got very low cost of production and very high grade that they produce. And so this makes for very high margins, a lot of free cash flow, and it's really an exceptional mine that I'm very bullish on that company alone. I'm going to talk about Las Chispas and Silvercrest later. But what I would say, oh, sorry, I forgot to bring up BRC here. Let me just hide all that, get these guys that are sending me messages like crazy. Okay, so BlackRock here is, I picked BlackRock back here for my tax loss selling picks. And it was trading at about 45 cents. It's now trading at 50 cents. So it's had kind of a nice move there so far. But I think that, it's got a lot of blue sky ahead of it because of the quality of the resource. They got a lot of pending news coming from that because they've drilled and doubled the footprint of the resource area, and so there's a ton of assay results pending from their resource expansion drilling that they've completed. And so that's one area of pending news. Another area of pending news is back in December, they announced that they had hit a bonanza grade hit of high grade gold and silver on their Silver Cloud project, the Northwest Canyon target, which is quite a distance away from any of their other past drilling at Silver Cloud. It's got like a grade of 70 grams of gold, hundreds of grams of silver. It's an excellent epithermal vein to do further exploration on. And I don't think it's too long before we're going to hear some news about a follow-up drilling on that. So this is a company that has a lot of news flow ahead of them. I think that they got oversold in late or in 2022, in the second half of 2022. But with gold moving up, silver moving up, and they having several catalysts, I think that this one's not too far away from a golden cross, and headed a lot higher. Okay, another company I want to talk about in Nevada is a new sponsor of my shows, which is a company called Athena Gold. So Athena Gold came to my attention after they put out some excellent results that I really think the market is not really taking a close look at. And I think they're a bit of an underloved story. Here's their listing. Unfortunately, Stock Charts doesn't have their Canadian listing showing up, so I got to go off their chart on their on the US listing on the pink sheets. But as you can see, Athena's trading right around its 50-day moving average. But the 50-day moving average and the 200-day moving average are very narrow. And I think that it's not too long before they see a significant move through a golden cross. If I had to guess, it might only be about 10 days to 2 weeks away from happening. One of the catalysts, of course, gold and silver getting stronger, but the most important catalyst for them is I don't think that the market is really appreciating how significant what they found is. Here's their news release: 10 grams of gold over 10 meters at their Excelsior Spring project. There was a bunch of good hits in there, but this really helps tell the story. As you can see here, they had this was the big one, the 23 that had DB23 that hit some really nice stuff. Then they went in there and they followed that up. Just trying to get that 23. Sorry, they followed that up and they got another nice gold hits on either side of that. So you've got a high grade discovery that's expanding, and it's in Nevada. So then we looked at, then I look at their geophysics, and I'm seeing a big geophysical anomaly here associated with an east to west fault and a north to south that intersect right here. And then you start to see the makings of a big geophysical anomaly. They have to expand this grid, and I think what you'll see happen is that there will be a big geophysical anomaly right where those two faults intersect. And then over here, you can see some interesting faulting that is happening in association with this where they've made those recent discoveries. So it's a really interesting project, but really underloved as well. The valuation is under 10 million. What is the Athena valuation here? I'll give you an accurate number. Their valuation is at today's price is 12.93 million. So as I said, it's a very cheap valuation stock, but it's in Nevada. It's making a high-grade discovery. It's expanding on that discovery. It's got plenty of targets on their project. I really think this is an undiscovered gem, and I'm glad that they joined my sponsorship program, because now I can keep telling my audience on a regular basis their story. And yeah, I'm very bullish on what Athena's doing. And I think that this is another good one on the list of my picks in Nevada. Okay, so next I'm going to talk about my orogenic gold system companies. Sokoman Minerals is one of those. Sokoman is in Newfoundland. And they have recently gone through what I think is a important juncture in the exploration of an orogenic gold system. They had been drilling for a few years on their Moosehead project, mainly very shallow in the system. The thing about these orogenic gold systems is that they're deep cracks in the earth. Those cracks allow the fluids carrying the high grade to make their way to surface, and when you get into the right structural regime, you can have these phenomenal high grade mines. A perfect example of that is at the Fosterville mine in Australia. When Kirkland Lake mined started mining the Swan Zone, it made them one of the lowest cost producers of gold in the business. Their stock went through the roof and kept on going through the roof until they were ultimately bought out. And the reason that they outperformed their peers so significantly was that the orogenic gold systems, although not big, are very high grade, and they're easy to mine, easy to get the gold out of the rock, and very profitable mining operations. They're really cash cows. And so I like to follow companies that can have one of those Swan Zone kind of stories. And orogenic, Sokoman, I think, is at that point where they have now drilled into something that reminds me of the Swan Zone. They drilled their 420, what they call their 463 zone. I'm getting my numbers mixed up. I call it a jewelry box zone. They hit a nice thick intersection of very high grade to bonanza grade gold. And what was most important is that their eastern zone, they've modeled it that they have another zone coming in from the other direction. And right where they meet is where they hit this jewelry box of up to bonanza grade gold over pretty thick intersections for these kind of systems. So then they went in there and drilled into it again with their 505 hole. That hole's pending. And any day now, they should start drilling with another hole to tackle into that 463 zone and get more drilling into this jewelry box hit. But I think that they have now got something to sink their teeth into in a big way. That reminds me of the Swan Zone at the Fosterville mine. And you know, if they show that they do have a Swan Zone, it wouldn't surprise me to see the company 10 times their current valuation, or even significantly more than that. And so, you know, for investors that want those swing for the fences kind of plays with a high probability of hitting a home run, Sokoman is a great one for you to look at. They're a sponsor of my shows as well. They've been trending up nicely over the last several months since they announced that hit at their 463 zone, making higher lows and higher highs, and now they've just gone through a golden cross, and the price is above the 50-day and the 200-day, and I'm expecting a lot of news out of this company in the next little while that should be very exciting. Okay, Galantis Gold is another sponsor that is onto a orogenic gold system. In this case, it's in Northern Ireland. I think the stock is pretty oversold here, and that they should have news out fairly soon from one of the veins in their orogenic gold system. Now, what's interesting about this project is that they also, in their close to surface drilling, let's say within the first 200 meters, they've found widespread gold, high grade to bonanza grade gold. But the depth is wide open. Now, also in that Kearney and Joshua veins, they found a series of dilation zones. This is where the rock opens up and allows the fluids to pool up into these dilation zones. So not only can they follow the gold mineralization in the veins, but they can also follow the dilation zones to lead them deeper. And the deeper story for this company really excites me, because what you find is that their veins, their Kearney and their Joshua, there's also the Kerr vein in between it, and some other veins outside of it, are all tightly packed into a small area. And to the immediate south of that small area of tightly packed zones with high grade is a big fault, a big crack in the earth. And I believe that as they follow these deeper, that they're going to come together into one mineralizing system, and it will be associated with that fault, that big crack in the earth right to the south of where this network of zones are found. This is a phenomenally exciting time for an orogenic gold system, but the market is giving you an undervalued opportunity. I think that those that take advantage of that are going to be very happy as they keep moving deeper into this this orogenic gold system that they have. I think they've got something very special as they get deeper, and now they've got all the breadcrumbs, if you will, to follow the system deeper. And yeah, I think that this is another one that if they find the roots of that orogenic gold system and keep following it at depth, that they've got the potential for 10 times plus performance in their stock valuation, because they're starting out at such a low valuation. Yeah, so that's why I like the Galantis story. And the new sponsor of my website is Dynasty Gold. And Dynasty Gold has done something that is very exciting to me. They have just recently drilled into an orogenic gold system. And in the first 150 meters, they're already finding the bonanza grades that you generally have to go quite deep to find in an orogenic gold system. So they're finding it very high and close to surface. They're already into the bonanza grade, high grade gold in an orogenic gold system. I recently did an interview with them because it's just been in the last week to 10 days that they've become a sponsor of my shows. And I noticed some really exciting things for them. They're on the northern boundary of their claims. There's a big regional crack in the earth or fault on the, and then through the middle of their project is another one. at sort of a key part of that fault that goes through their ground. There's a pretty significant displacement of that fault. And it's right at that displacement area where you get like 7 different rock packages. Something is happening there that's very exciting. And the fact that they've already hit or high grade, bonanza grade orogenic gold numbers that close to surface is tremendously exciting, because now they've got something to use to vector deeper and deeper and deeper. And as you get deeper into these systems, you often get higher grades because you're moving closer to the heat engine that brought these hot fluids with the high grade gold up towards the surface. And in this case, really close to the surface. Oh, I forgot to bring Dynasty's chart up there. Let's see here. So when they originally announced the results, you could see it just blasted off. But due to this kind of action prior, you're generally going to see some hot money came in, and there's, leftover shareholders that are in much cheaper that probably took some profits, and that's why it came back down to close today at 21.5 cents. It did get below 20 cents, but just for a very short period of time. And I think you're going to see the trend go up from here. They just went through their golden cross, and I'm really impressed with this project. I think that it's a very undervalued project. I love these orogenic gold systems, especially when you can hit the bonanza grades so early in the exploration of a high grade orogenic gold system. So I'm very bullish on Dynasty. I'm super happy that they've joined my sponsorship program. Usually what I do early when I bring a new company on as a sponsor is I'll also do like a written report about them, and put some pictures in there that help tell the story. So I'm working on one of those for Dynasty as we speak. So stay tuned for that. But again, I think these 3 companies have excellent orogenic gold systems. Okay, so I'm going to now move into base metals and talk about another sponsor of mine that I hope it's not lost on people that most of the sponsors of my website are outperforming their peers quite significantly. and 9 Mile Metals is in that category. They're in the Bathurst mining camp, which is one of the top 3 VMS mining camps in the world. And they've found 2 brand new occurrences of massive sulfides in the Bathurst mining camp in New Brunswick, Canada. And what stands out to me about those new occurrences is the first one that they found and they started making noise about was back here was their 9 Mile Brook lens. And this is a thick lens of massive sulfides with up to over 10% copper in it, and zinc and lead and gold and silver in it as well. And why that's so important to me is when you have a thick intersection of high grade massive sulfides at the surface, you're really looking at the top of the system, okay? And because these are volcanoes that cause the massive sulfides to make their way to surface, you keep following those and you find the source of where that near surface came from. And because it's so thick and high grade at the top of the system, it tells you that the rest of the system should also be big and high grade. So now they're drilling for the source of that lens, which is a very exciting situation in the evolution of a VMS discovery. And then they drilled 20 kilometers away at their 9 Mile Brook project, and they hit another massive sulfide occurrence in a few holes. And again, they're at the top of the system, and they're already finding high grades of zinc and lead and with sniffs of copper, silver, and gold. And again, you're at the very top of the system. So that's giving you a representation of what the rest of the system should look like as you get closer to the heat engine of what brought these metals to the surface. So, and they're in a camp that where these VMSs are often found in clusters, and they got a bunch of other geophysical anomalies that suggest they should make more massive sulfide discoveries. As it sits right now, they've got two massive sulfide occurrences 20 kilometers apart, that the finding the source is the next step in the evolution of those projects. I'm particularly excited about them finding the source of their 9 Mile Brook lens, because it should be a monster below that, and with very big and very high grade deposit in a VMS system that I'm very excited about. So 9 Mile Metals is by far my favorite junior explorer for base metals, copper, zinc. In these VMS systems, you also get gold and silver associated with them. So it's polymetallic story in a elephant country of a mining area. I got a lot of good things to say about that one. Okay, so now I'm going to talk about some of my some of the other companies, because what I talked about so far are the companies that are sponsors of my shows. But I also have a group, I have sort of three groups that I follow. There's the sponsors, and they are committed to doing regular interviews with me when they have news releases out. I also cover them extensively in my sector reports. They're the ones that get my most attention. But there's a second group that are not sponsors, but are picks of mine that I have a very high opinion of. In a lot of cases, I would like to have them as sponsors of my shows, but they haven't taken me up on that offer yet. But nonetheless, I like their stories. And one of those stories is McEwen Mining. McEwen Mining was under a lot of pressure over the last couple of years because of the difficulties they were having with their gold mining operations. Then they started to make a turnaround in their gold mining operations to bring the cost down and increase the grade. And that's starting to bear fruit. But that's not why the stock, bottomed in August at around $4.50, and then has had a nice bottom, a significant breakout, now has gone through a golden cross, and is now trading well above the 50-day and 200-day moving average. What's caused all that excitement is that they've got a second asset, a copper asset in Argentina, that looks like it's going to be an important future mine for copper. It's very big. It's in the top 10 of undeveloped copper mines or copper projects in the world. And it's got it's in the lowest quartile of estimated mining costs. That's the perfect recipe for what major copper producers need. They need big mines that they can mine at low cost and make a lot of money off of. And not only do the mining companies need those kind of assets, but the efforts to transition into the electric vehicle revolution needs those as well. And so they are in a very exciting asset on their copper that's been getting a lot of attention as the price of copper's gone up. And I think that another seminal moment for them is they plan in 2023 to spin out the copper assets and create McEwen Copper. And McEwen Mining will own around 68% of McEwen Copper. And so the investors in McEwen Mining will get a big interest in the copper asset, plus they will also get their turnaround on their gold mining operations. And what I still believe they're very undervalued relative to the quality of their copper asset and their turnaround in the gold mining operations. Also helps that gold's getting more expensive, so that helps their bottom line on the gold gold mining story as well. But getting price discovery for the copper asset inside of McEwen Mining has been difficult. Even though they've announced that the financing they've done are at $10 a share in the private McEwen Copper, our asset that's part of McEwen Mining. When they do separate it, it will be able to get its own valuation. And I think that valuation and their interest in that valuation and the efforts that they're making to turn around their mining operation is going to see that valuation go much higher. So McEwen Mining is another of my picks that I'm very optimistic about. That's solely a pick. They're not a sponsor of my shows. Okay, now something I talked about in my year in review show was I call them cash making machines of mines, and one of those is Silvercrest. Silvercrest owns the Las Chispas mine in Sonora, Mexico, and they put it into full commercial production in November. Now, what happens when these new mines start is that the institutions, they need a quarter or two of production numbers to really get, positioning themselves in a big way, which creates an opportunity for the smaller retail investors to get in before the big crowd gets in. And why I have every confidence that the big institutional players out there are going to take big positions in Silvercrest and drive the price dramatically higher is that they have very low costs of production. They're producing silver at about $6.85 an ounce, and they're mining it at about 700 grams per ton. This is a cash machine of a mine, but it needs that quarter or two of production numbers for the bean counters that run these big institutions to get really excited. So I believe it's a low risk opportunity for investors that want exposure to a silver and gold miner, that it will see a lot of institutional investment as they, get through the first quarter or two of production. But so far, everything is pointing in a great direction for them. Low cost, high value, or low cost of production, high grade, and a high margin operation. I think this is an ideal cornerstone investment for investors that want exposure to the silver and gold space, but without a lot of risk. I don't see hardly anything in the downside risk category and a lot of blue sky ahead of them. So the other reason that I follow Silvercrest so closely is because I'm the CEO of a company called Advanced Lithium. And Advanced Lithium owns a 50-some square kilometer project to the immediate north of Silvercrest's Las Chispas mine. And Las Chispas is an epithermal vein system. And on our property to the immediate north are two known large epithermal veins that have been underexplored. One of them is 5 kilometers long. The other one is 2 kilometers long. Really been underexplored. The drilling that has been done in the past, I believe, hasn't hit the boiling zone of the epithermal veins. What we do know is that there's several outcrops on both of these veins, and those outcrops have widespread gold and silver mineralization throughout all of the outcrops. So you know that these two epithermal veins have gold and silver mineralization, but nobody's hit the boiling zone of them yet. And that's what we mean to do with our exploration. There's a second high potential for this project in that not only are the known veins wide open for exploration along strike and at depth to look for the boiling zones, but also the Las Chispas has a network of veins. And so there's a potential to find a network of veins on our property as well. We're in the same structural corridor. We're in the same rock packages. Everything is pointing towards success for us at our Serape project. We have lithium in our name because we have a series of lithium projects in Mexico. We got punished when the Mexican government announced that they're starting a national Mexican lithium company. When the market heard that, I think they thought that means that they're just going to expropriate our projects. I don't think that the market really understands that the legal protection for us is quite strong. The Constitution in Mexico is very clear. The government is not allowed to retroactively change the mining laws to affect companies with projects in good standing. We're one of three lithium-focused companies or companies with lithium assets in Mexico that are in good standing. So we have that protection. We also have protection of the U.S., Canada, Mexico Free Trade Agreement. I think there's a bullish resolution to our lithium projects, but in the meantime, while that's being ironed out, we've got this Serape project to focus on. It's a great gold and silver exploration project right beside a cash machine of a mine, same kind of rocks, same kind of epithermal vein system, same kind of structural corridor, and we're going to focus on bringing the Serape project forward. Well, we can see gold and silver are doing very well, and maybe in the second half of 2023 we can have some good news on our lithium as well. So the lithium situation has caused us to have a $2 million Canadian valuation, but I do believe that the Serape project has the realistic potential of making us into what I call a phoenix rising from the ashes story. And we're going to be making more news on the Serape project in the not too distant future. Okay, another cash making machine of a mine is Orla Mining. OLA is their symbol. They have a gold mine in Mexico. And as you can see, it's got a beautiful chart here. It bottomed in the summertime, making higher lows, higher highs, went through a golden cross in December, is now trading right on the 50-day moving average. But I think you're going to see the 200-day moving average move upwards and the 50-day moving average move upwards as well. They're one of the top 10 lowest cost producers of gold in the business. And they're really an undiscovered gem of a story that, surprises me that they have such a cash making machine of a mine and they're not getting more attention. But a lot of that has to do with the challenges that the gold stocks went through in a lot of 2022. But I think 2023 is going to be an exceptional year for gold stocks. And Orla Mining is another for those that want less risk, but they also want exposure to a gold stock. Orla Mining is something you want to take a look at. Let me talk about, my tax loss selling picks. let's quickly deal with those before I close off because I'm getting a little long here. Earlier I talked about BlackRock. I don't need to talk about them a lot, but I did pick them here as a tax loss selling pick. They've broken out and are trading now at 59 cents. At the end of the tax loss selling, they were trading at about 45 cents. So they've made a pretty good move, but as I talked about earlier, I think they've got a lot of catalysts to see that perform much better. High Gold was another of my tax loss selling victims that I thought were oversold here. They were trading at, let's say, about 65 cents. Now they're trading at 77 cents. I also picked them as a deep value play. So they're coming out of that tax loss selling season very well. And I think they've got a lot of blue sky ahead of them. Another of my tax loss selling picks was Firefox. I like this story a lot. They're in Finland. As you can see, they were way down here. Now they moved up quite nicely. They had some good news out, and just a couple days ago. I think this is very underloved story in Finland. I like the direction of the 50-day moving average. I think that they're only a few weeks away from a golden cross that takes the stock much higher. Finland's a very exciting place because there's been some big successes out there. Rupert is a junior that's done very well, making a multi-million ounce gold discovery. It's in an orogenic gold camp. I like a lot of what's going on with Firefox. Amex was another of my tax loss selling picks. They've cooperated. They were down here and had a pretty good move, got it all the way up to 201, has come back down, and surprisingly, it's down today on excellent news. I'm trying to get an interview with their VP exploration. I think they've got an exceptionally good orogenic gold system. Just check out some of my recent news or my recent sector reports, and I talked at length about them. I really like their story and think that's an undervalued situation. Bell Copper, they're in Arizona they were another of my tax loss selling picks. They've cooperated very nicely as well. They're in elephant country looking for an elephant. I think they might have one. And right now the stock is trading right in the middle of its 50-day moving average and its 200-day moving average. Looking forward to them talking about their next rounds of drilling. If they find what they're looking for, this will be a 10x plus performance on their stock. It's a real swing for the fences with the potential for an out of the park home run. I like those kind of stories, and I like the treasure hunt. Okay, and the other company, and it's no coincidence that all of my, well, this one's actually kind of flat since the end of tax loss selling, trading right in between its 50-day moving average and its 200-day moving average, is Grand Portage. I like this story because they have a significant resource, over 1 million ounces, that looks like it could get well over 2 million ounces, and with a grade of about 10 grams per ton of gold. And they've done a bunch of drilling. They've got more pending results. I also picked this not only in my end of the year report as a tax loss selling pick, I also picked it as a deep value play because they're getting on the very low end of the historical range for ounces of gold in the ground relative to valuation. They're getting a very cheap valuation relative to the quality of the assets they have in the ground. So I see them as a deep value play that I really like. I did plan on talking about more companies in this show, but I covered some of my sponsors, covered some of my not sponsors that are picks, and my tax loss selling picks. So there you go. I'm gonna stop the screen share here and, yeah, as always, my shows are for information purposes only. Important to speak with your financial advisors, do your homework, and be informed on the companies that you're investing in, why you're investing in them, have a reasonable time frame. That's a recipe for success in investing in this sector. That's what all the successful investors in this sector have done during my career since 1993. I advise you to do the same. On that note, have a great day and we'll talk to you soon.